What's your name?
My name is Grace Montes.
Where are you from?
Was born in Cuba and I live here now in United States.
How old are you?
That's a very direct question. I'm 79 years old.
Are you ready? Did you go to high school?
Yes, I did.
Did you want to go to high school?
Yes, I did.
Why?
Because I liked school when I was growing up.
Mm. What kind of subjects did you study?
Different ones. I study also to be a secretary.
Mm. What kind of homework did you have?
Hmm?
What kind of homework did you have?
I have very little homework.
But what subjects was it usually for?
Wherever I went to a Catholic school, so sometimes I had to do religion, and depended what the teacher wanted. I had a very good teacher that never gave us homework because the way she prepared her class and the way she taught was beautiful. You didn't have to have a homework after that.
That's nice. Did most of the kids in your neighborhood go to high school?
I imagine so. There weren't that many. The only ones I knew in my school, they did.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How many hours per week did you work, not including school?
I didn't work while I was going to
No.
school.
After school. After school.
I did not work after school.
No. I mean after you finished school.
Oh, after
Like
I
when
finished.
you when you started
after
working.
I finished
On
school,
average, how many hours were you working?
we only worked 8 hours.
8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
How much did you contribute to the family income?
Nothing.
Nothing. Cause you started working after, right?
Yeah.
After you left.
I started working when I was 17.
Mm. Did you want to go to work?
Yeah, I wanted to make some money,
Mm-hmm.
and they hired me. So I was working in a automobile dealer.
Hmm. What were your clothes like? Clothes.
What work? What
Grow
was?
up.
What was
Your
I
clothes.
wearing?
What were they like? Like bell bottoms or whatever.
No, at that time they were just regular. Most of the time I was dressed with a dress and skirt.
What kind of dress?
It's just a regular young girl, 17, 18 years old dress.
Hmm. Were you concerned about fashion?
Not really. Mm-mm.
No.
No.
Did you date in high school?
No. There
No?
was no. There was all scared, all girls school.
At what age were you allowed to date?
I never dated when I was growing up in Cuba.
No.
No.
What did you do on a date? Like when you had started dating?
We were usually we had a group that we went to the movies together,
Mm-hmm.
or we went to visit friends from the school in another town. But that was it. We would go to the beach,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. Very healthy, very simple life.
How did you and your friends spend your free time?
Going to the movies, or going for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
We went to the town, and then we went to the different stores, just things like that. We have to go by bus, so we had to take a bus to go to the downtown.
Didn't you take your little airplane?
Airplane.
That you had an airplane.
I had it.
You had a plane that your dad would let you fly or whatever. That you guys would fly to.
No. When I was young, my father had a pilot friend of his,
Mm-hmm.
and he used to fly to where I was born, and he let me ride the plane
Where
with
were you
his
born?
friend, and it was very exciting.
Where were you born?
I was born in a sugar plantation
Where?
in the province of Oriente.
Mm. What was your most nagging problem as a teenager?
I don't think I had any problems.
Nothing that like annoyed you or bothered you?
No, I didn't didn't have anything that will bother me. That I
So
was
life was
just,
perfect.
not that I was perfect, but my life was pretty perfect.
But like when there was something wrong, what usually was it?
There was nothing wrong.
So it was perfect.
I had a perfect life when I was growing up, thank God.
Mm. What do you see as the main difference between the teenagers of today and yourself as a teenager?
Oh, there's a big, big difference. There was no drinking, no drugs. We could have fun. We can go dancing and everything. That's it. But never anything strange.
Mm. What do you think of today's teenagers?
I think they are living their life a little bit too fast.
Too fast?
Too fast. They are in the fast lane. Not all of them, but quite a few. And it's a shame they're wasting their life like that when they can do so many things. They can become whatever they want to
Mm.
without going the wrong way.
Mm. What was it like growing up in Cuba?
Like growing up,
Yeah, in Cuba.
it was beautiful. I went to school. I went to learn how to play the piano. And I went to work when I got a job that I was working, and then I prepared myself to come over here,
Mm-hmm.
and I came all by myself.
At what age did you come to the United States?
Hmm?
At what age did you come to the United States?
20 years old.
20 years old.
Hmm.
Hmm. What did you do when you first got here?
I went to some friends, to the house of some friends of mine. They were the one who sent me the money to come over,
Mm.
to pay for the airfare. That at that time, round trip was only $42.
Mm.
Today is could be close to 600.
Mm. Would you have rather grown up in the United States or in Cuba?
If the situation would have been normal as they were in Cuba, I probably would have stayed there. Would have never left.
Mhm.
But I probably would have traveled because I have family here.
But if you were a child, would you rather have grown up in the United States or would you have rather grown up in Cuba like you did?
The growing up in Cuba was completely different than it here.
Yeah, I
The
know.
school and everything was different.
Mm-hmm.
You were on the 6th grade in Cuba. You didn't have to go to any other high school or the university if you don't want to be anybody, you know. So it was a very simple, and most of the people growing up at my age weren't working. We
Mhm.
didn't have to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were just, you were 20 years old, you could go to ballet classes or piano or whatever you wanted to do, but you didn't have to go to work
Mm-hmm.
because most of the family in Cuba, they were middle class. And either you go to the university, you wanted to go and study, become somebody,
Mm-hmm.
otherwise you didn't have to do anything else. You probably will marry if you were ready to get married and have children. So I don't know what happened, but my destiny, I guess, was to leave this at the time I did, but I have to leave my family behind, which it was a very hard.
How long did you go without seeing your family?
17 years.
Wow.
I know, it's a long time.
Mm.
I have to wait until my parents were able to leave the country.
And your sister?
And my sister, which I left her being single, and when I saw her again, I had to fly to Spain with my month-old daughter, and she had her husband and 2 boys, 9 and 10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, it was long time.
Mm. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
I wanted to be a stewardess.
Why didn't you become a stewardess?
Because they told me that I was very old at 20. Now, at my age, they can hire me and it'll be fine. But at that time, 20 years old, you were too old. Unbelievable.
What did you think about the music back then?
Music?
Yeah, growing up.
I growing up with the rock and roll, Elvis Presley, but I like classic music though. I used to
Mhm.
go with my uncle to big stars. They used to come, the opera singers and uh, famous piano players. You
Mhm.
know, I'm talking about people with classical. They were. I saw. What was his name? It's been so long ago. I can remember, but I saw uh, many concerts where there was ballet,
Mhm.
and some of them they were just for piano. And I remember who was the gentleman that I saw. And of course, the ballet I went to see Alicia Alonso, which was the number one dancer at that time. She was the prima ballerina for the New York Ballet,
Mhm.
and I saw her many times. I used to take classes, uh, no with her, but I took classes with another ballet, a male ballet dancer. And what was that? I'm still. It bothers me that I don't remember what was the name of the pianist that I saw. He was so good. He used to play just with his eyes closed. It was beautiful, and I loved operas. I used to go with my uncles to see to all those concerts, and I did really enjoy those.
Mhm. Um, at the time, growing up in Cuba, was there a lot of American influence?
Believe it or not, we did have some uh, in the sugar plantation where I was born. The first owner were Americans,
Mhm.
and the whole town it looks exactly like Key West. That
Mhm.
type of houses we had. It was just so. I only can say for where I was born, because we moved to the capital, the Havana, and Havana is a very old city, so they have the buildings already, very European actually,
Mhm.
with the designs of the buildings that they had and things like that. Some of later on, some of them very modern, the beautiful building they had.
Mhm.
But we live in a house,
Mhm.
big house.
Did you want to go to college when you were younger?
I wanted to go to university, either be an architect, which I never did, and I was interested in some kind of medicine, but I didn't have the opportunity to actually go
Mhm.
to learn how to become a doctor or an architect. I would have liked to be an architect, but I wanted to be a stewardess or a
Mhm.
flying attendant, as they call it too.
Mhm. When did the revolution happen in Cuba?
It happened. It really became the revolution. It was in 1959.
Mhm. What was life like before the revolution happened?
It was very normal. You know, you can fly anywhere, you can travel anywhere you want to, you can have
Mhm.
as many houses as you wanted, that you can afford. You can get any job that you wanted. If you wanted, you can buy your car, whatever you can afford, you can do it.
Mhm.
After I came here the first time in 1959, so actually I was around 17.
Mhm.
Actually, the first time I came here in 1959, if 17, 18 years old. That was my first trip, and then I came back in 1961,
Mhm.
so 3 years before. And it was completely different. The business that my family had was intervened by the government, and my parents have to give them away.
Mhm.
My mother was arrested once because they say that she was dealing in some kind of currency. Please, unbelievable. So, but I realized that the business where I worked, that there was an automobile dealer, was intervened by the government also, and the owner had to flee, and they left Cuba and they went to. First, I think they came here, and then they went to Puerto Rico, where
Mhm.
they opened another car dealer,
Mhm.
which they called me to go over there, and I said no. I was thinking I was so close to Cuba from here.
Mhm.
What was your first impression of the United States as a teenager when you went?
Well, I loved it when I came because I flew to New York,
Mm-hmm.
and New York is such a great city at that time. You know, my family was living here, so we flew to New York and then we went to Connecticut
Mm-hmm.
where they lived.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing to see. It was unbelievable, you know, those tall buildings. You were looking at them, and I says, "Oh my God!" I went to the Empire State,
Mm-hmm.
which is huge. Even though they have other buildings, my understanding is they're taller than the Empire State. But I enjoyed tremendously. And then I had to go back to Cuba,
Mm-hmm.
and then come back soon because otherwise I was very lucky. I could travel to United States anytime I wanted for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to my parents, I says, I'm leaving. I can't stand it here. I can't stand it. So I was able to get friends of mine that sent me the money because they were here already for the trip. And I came in August 4th, 1961.
Mm-hmm. Why did you pick Miami?
Because it was closer to Cuba. And I thought I was closer to my parents this way.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize I was going to spend 17 years without seeing them.
Yeah.
I could have gone to New York where my cousin was an attorney in New York, or I could have gone to Connecticut where I got my uncle also
Mm-hmm.
in Connecticut.
How was
Bridgeport, Connecticut.
How was life like when you first moved to the United States?
Oh, it was completely different. Miami was all the way to Northwest 57th Avenue. That
Mm-hmm.
was it.
Mm-hmm.
And certain people couldn't go to downtown Miami. They couldn't ride the buses the way. They couldn't go to the bathrooms the way.
Mhm.
They were what they called them, the colored people.
They lived
Which
in
it
Color
was
Town.
it was amazing to me because we didn't have that
Mm-hmm.
in Cuba. You can go anywhere you want to. You can go any bathroom you want to.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a learning time. And
So
then
it was very different seeing the racial discrimination
it
the
was
United States.
completely different. Yeah. Mm-mm.
because they didn't have that. Like
no,
that.
we didn't have that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw it here in Miami, and I was really, it was strange.
Mm-hmm.
And but I was able to, to understand sometimes why, which it didn't make any sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, things changed for the best.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God they did that because they have beautiful and fantastic music people, singer that they were colored like they call them, and they couldn't stay in big hotels or anything like they can perform in hotels and things like that, but
Like the
they have to
Fontainebleau.
stay in the Overtown.
Mm-hmm.
So
And Overtown was called Color Town then, right?
well,
That was the
it was
original
always
name.
has been called Overtown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of friends growing up in Cuba?
I had quite a few, yeah.
What did you guys usually do? Just go to the movies, like you said?
We go to the movies, we ride bicycles, or we go actually to the stores in what it was the downtown of Havana at that
Mhm.
time. And we go to the beach, or we go to Varadero Beach, where my uncles live there. They have property there. They had quite a few properties in Varadero.
Mm-hmm.
And we enjoy going there. And it was really, really, and I had my own car, so I can drive around.
What kind of car did you have?
I had a little French car. It's a Simca,
Mm-hmm.
Simca. That was a Simca car. It was a French one, and I bought it at the dealer where I was working. It was really nice, and I used to drive really good. And we didn't have traffic lights like here.
Mm-hmm.
You blow the horn, boop, boop, and then you go.
What kind of cars usually would you see on the road when you were growing up?
Well, my father, we had a Dodge at that time
Mm-hmm.
in the 1950s. And I don't remember what year they got the car, but
Before
I-
that, how did you guys go around?
By bus, we had a very good
bus.
service of bus service. That was
Mhm.
fantastic. Every 3 minutes, we had a bus passing by,
Mhm.
and sometimes the bus driver, we get to know them, and they will stop right in front of my house,
Mhm.
let me out.
What were your parents' jobs when you were growing up?
We own a drugstore, but this is already when I was a teenager.
Mhm.
We had a drugstore in Vedado. That was a section of Havana.
Mhm.
That's what we had. My uncle was retired from
Mhm.
the sugar mill, and my father was working in the drugstore with my mother.
Mm. How many people did you have living in your house growing up? Living in your house growing up?
Mi mamá, mi papá, mi tía, mi tío.
You can say it. You can list them.
Let's see, my mother, my father, my aunt, my uncle, my father's cousin, me and my sister, about seven
7.
people,
And then you had maids and stuff.
and we
right?
had 2 maids,
Mhm.
or 3 maids we had growing up.
Mhm. How has Cuba changed since the revolution?
Awful, for the
Awful.
bad, the worst. It's not the type of life that they have over there is not. If you tell the people, some of them can't believe that, because if you hear the tourists going there to Cuba, oh, it's so beautiful. Oh, there's no problem. I go to the restaurant, I can have anything I want to. I say, yes, as a tourist, you can have anything you want.
Mhm.
But as a local, a resident of Cuba, no, you can't. Now it's a little bit more easy for them, but before
Mhm.
they couldn't go to a hotel. They couldn't go to a big restaurant that they have for tourists only. They couldn't do that.
Mhm.
And no clothing. You have to go to the stores, and the stores, the markets are almost empty.
Mhm.
When before, you can buy anything you want to,
Mhm.
no problem. Everything was there. So it's still is a difficult, but some of them can get along a little better. And after so many years, you get used to it.
Mhm. How old were you when you learned English?
I learned it in school. I think I was 12, 11.
In Cuba?
Since I was 11, yeah.
Mhm.
I learned it with a wonderful English teacher, which she was from Germany, but
Mhm.
she spoke 7 different languages.
Was English the only language you learned?
No, I learned English and French with her,
Mhm.
but I have forgotten my my French because I didn't have anybody to speak with.
Mhm. When you were little, was there any place that you wanted to travel to in the world?
Oh, I always liked to travel anywhere.
Mhm.
I wanted to go to Spain. I wanted to come to United States
Mhm.
because my uncle always loved United States, and he never came.
Mhm.
Never came here. But he spoke English. He taught my father English,
Mhm.
and I wanted just to travel. I love to travel. I still love to travel, and but I just, like I said, I wanted to be a flying attendant so I can fly anywhere.
Mhm.
Never did.
Did the United States live up to your expectations when you came to it?
More,
Like, did you
because I
expect
didn't.
more from it, or did you?
No, I was amazed,
Mhm.
when I got here, and I started learning about the way the politics work here. It was completely different in Cuba.
How were the politics in Cuba?
In Cuba, some of them became president by elections, another one by a dictatorship.
Mhm.
And we have had both of them, presidents, and we have had dictators.
Mhm.
But here it was so different. You can say anything you want to. You can talk. The freedom is unbelievable.
Mhm.
So and I've been here ever since. So what can I tell you?
How has it been seeing the way the United States has changed all these
It
years?
has changed quite a lot. I
Mhm.
mean, I think worldwide, We have, we don't have the same reputation that we had before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we have respect
Mm-hmm.
in politics. And
And it was respected before.
well, there was always the whole world respected us because we helped so many. We had wars that you know, the Yankees are coming. That's
Mhm.
what they when the Yankees were coming. Oh, that was it. You know, you were looking at the Marines. Everybody thinking of the Marines. Where are the Marines?
Mhm.
It was beautiful. And then I came here, and I met someone which has given me a beautiful daughter
Mhm.
with two beautiful grandchildren, which I love dearly.
Mhm.
And I think they have been very lucky for them to be born here
Mhm.
because they will be able to be whatever they want.
Mhm.
I may not be here to see it, but they can be anything they want.
Would you rather your daughter have grown up here or have grown up in Cuba?
Well, by the time that she would have grown up, it would have been during the revolution, and no way. I'm very happy that she grew up here.
Mm-hmm.
And she's very intelligent. She speaks beautiful English and Spanish. And I always want my grandson to learn Spanish and French, or my granddaughter. But it's a little hard
Mm-hmm.
to make them learn. They don't realize how important is from somebody. It doesn't matter if you're here or whatever. You go to Europe and they speak 4 and 5 languages, different languages.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody from Spain speak English, speaks Italian, French, German. They do that. And here, it's possible to learn
Mm-hmm.
several languages, but I don't know. I wish my grandson will do that.
How would you say the world was like in the 40s and 50s when you were
Oh, I
growing
was
up?
a child. I was just,
Mm.
I was 9, 10 years old.
How,
Well, in
when
the
you were-
40s,
when you were
I
a
was 3
teenager?
years old.
I know,
you
but
know.
when you were a teenager, how was the world like?
Well, they had the war,
Mhm.
World War II. It was over in, I think it was 1945
40 something.
or 44, something like that. I
Mhm.
was just about 5 or 6 years old.
Mhm.
So, I didn't understand what was going on.
Mhm.
To me, there was no war because we did not participate.
Yeah.
So we heard about it and we saw it in the movies, but I didn't know anybody that went to.
Mhm.
So
What was your favorite movie growing up? If you
believe it
have
or
one.
not, I saw The Gone with the Wind.
Gone with the Wind was your favorite movie?
Yeah. I saw that movie and I'm still seeing it about 100 times. I can see it again.
Did you like to read when you were growing up?
To read?
Yeah.
No.
No, you didn't like reading?
No, I didn't like. I don't know why.
Hmm.
Just didn't.
Was it a popular thing though? Like, did you know a lot of people who like to read?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
What about religion? Was religion a lot more important
Well,
at the time?
most of the people I knew, they were Catholic. I went
Mhm.
to a Catholic school.
But do you
with
think
Mexican
like
nuns.
at the time compared to now, was religion a lot bigger?
Of course, the government kicked all the nuns and the priests out of the country.
Why?
They closed all the Catholic schools and all the religious schools. They closed them. That's it. No more religion. They're communists.
Mm-hmm. But I'm saying when you were growing up as a
When
teenager.
I was growing up, it was Catholic.
Mm-hmm. But was it like heavily?
Most
Heavily
of them
influenced?
Catholics. I have 2 different monsignors in my
Mhm.
family,
Mm-hmm.
so it was Catholic.
But at the time, was religion a heavy influence on life?
Well, everybody.
Like religion was more important back then than now, I guess. 'Cause-
Well, of course, now they have religion, but it's not. They don't allow. They are letting the priests now back in a way,
Mhm.
and they're allowing them to be there, but they don't have religious schools like they did before.
and it's not followed
They
as
were-
strictly as
even
before.
even when Fidel was growing up, and his
Mhm.
brother, they went to Belém school,
Mhm.
which is a Catholic school, but he closed those 2.
Mm-hmm.
He closed everything. He closed La Salle. Everything was closed.
Mhm. Did you have what what were your political views at the time growing up? Yeah.
No.
Or you weren't political?
Well, I thought at that time, being didn't know exactly what it was going on. I thought that
Mhm.
Fidel Castro was doing something really great, which he
Mhm.
was not, and that's why I left the country.
Mhm.
I was lucky enough to leave early, because maybe, who knows, I probably would still be there.
Mhm.
Maybe be dead by then.
Who do you think was the most famous person at the time when you were growing up?
Where?
Just in general, like the most famous person
Well,
in the
I
world.
remember the president of the United States at that time. I don't know exactly who was the president there, but Einstein was very famous, very well
Mhm.
known. You know, even Stalin, because these are the Russian people. They were
Mhm.
famous all over the world.
Mhm.
Churchill, from England.
FDR.
You know, if no,
FDR had died already.
uh, no, no, he was still alive. I think. I think he. Well, when I was born, he was
Mhm.
still alive.
Yeah.
But he was. They was very, very famous. All those people.
Mhm. I think after
You
him
know.
was
And de
Lyndon
Gaulle
B.
in
Johnson.
France. There was so there were very, very well known people during the war. That's what happened.
Mhm.
You know, and what can I tell you?
What was life like in the United States with the Vietnam War?
Oh, there was a lot of opposition during the Vietnam.
Were you against it?
I didn't think it was right. I didn't like that.
Mhm.
And at that time, I had a boyfriend that was a civilian for the army, and he
Mhm.
had to fly a lot and go to different countries where there was fighting going on,
Mhm.
and there was a lot of life that were lost for what I think it
Mhm.
wasn't necessary. But that's the way the politics work, and even though I didn't like it,
Mhm.
there's nothing I actually could do myself.
Throughout your life, who do you think was your favorite political leader?
Oh,
Political leader, like president or.
I wasn't politically involved. No,
But like throughout your life, who do you think's been your favorite? Like.
when
do you agree with the
Kennedy
most?
was very very important, even though he did not kept his promise to help in Cuba when
Mhm.
the invasion they did.
Mhm.
And let's see, who is the other one? Well, I always like Eisenhower, even though it's a Republican. I am not a Republican, but I like Eisenhower. And I like Obama.
Mhm.
And who was the other one? There were so many. Those, I think, right now, the only thing I can think of. Like I said, I'm not a political person.
Yeah. Mhm. Did you have a lot of animals growing up?
Dogs. Well,
Dogs?
when I was growing up, I lived like in a farm. We had we have cows, we had goats,
Mhm.
we had like, what else? We had dogs. We had most of anything. We have dogs and cats. That we had that when we moved to Havana. But in the sugar plantation, oh, it was like a farm.
Mhm.
We had everything. I loved it there.
Was it a lot more common back then for people to have all those animals?
Where we was in the sugar plantation, yes, that you have your own. Sometimes they had little farms nearby,
Mhm.
and the people had we had the milk that was delivered to our house every single day.
Mhm. You didn't go buy milk at the store; it was delivered.
No,
The
I didn't
milkman?
have to. It was delivered to my house,
Mhm.
so we didn't have to do that.
Mm.
And most of things were delivered to my house when I was growing up. But what can I tell you now? It's not the same.
Okay, that's good.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Now that you know my whole life,
Mhm.
what do you think about my whole life?
It's nice.
Right?
Yes.
Interesting?
Yeah.
Not boring?
No.
It's good.